Dawson's Rambles.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Ryder here. Today we got a preview clip for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Once and Always. Don't know if we'll get more. We usually get about 2 for your average episode during like regular Dino Fury or Saban era time, so maybe we'll get at least 1 more. We got about, 10 days until the special, but this one largely resolves around exposition, to be honest, which is funny because there's been a lot of discussion about this topic of like, why are we using these powers, how are the powers back, and all that stuff. So you got Kat, Rocky, Billy, Zach, and Alpha at the power chamber, command center, whatever they're gonna call it. Command power, power center, whatever. I don't know. What are they going to call it now that I think about it? That doesn't matter. I just got distracted by myself. But they're basically having the scene where they're giving Rocky and Kat their coins, the dino versions of the coins, and they're kind of explaining where they come from. It definitely raises some other questions for, the nerdy people that keep track of everything. But effectively what they say is Billy and Alpha say they've been experimenting with proxy powers so that they can have them effectively use these coins to also use the powers, is what I'm presuming that means, so that Kat and Rocky can use these powers. And Alpha says, like, so you can all use dino powers, and then Kat's like, oh, blimey. Oh, she's not English, wait. Kat's like, how do I do an Australian accent? But Kat's like, oh, I got my turbo powers right here, it'll be fine. And Alpha's like, dino powers! And she's like, oh, but what about the Zeo? Dino powers! So that's the explanation as to why they have the dino powers. As people were wondering about that, like, number one, like, especially Kat, who's never used the pterodactyl coin before because she was the season 3 crane powers, and then, Rocky had both, but there's been some back and forth, and then, not to mention, there's the whole plot about the other Rangers getting turned into little figures, and it seems like we can see them as the figures, so if you're like, okay, if, Jason and Kim are trapped with the figures, with their powers, how do they get them? This explains it. Effectively creates duplicate powers, which the way I'm going to assume it works is it's kind of like, they're both channeling from the same source. They both have the same coin and they can transform into the same power set, maybe not at the same time, or they shouldn't transform at the same time. Kat even says, as a little Easter egg, she says, I don't even care if too much pink energy is dangerous. Once a ranger, always a ranger. I don't even care if I'm risking my life and others. Once a ranger, always a ranger. Also kind of funny and worth noting that this kind of explanation of this proxy morph, which again sounds like it's just basically having multiple doors open to a house, like you're having, this coin be able to access the same powers, feels very similar to something that just happened in the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers TMNT crossover comic, where Billy modified the morphers so that the mmpr team and the Turtles team could use the coins at the same time, and he called it shadow morphing. I think that's a coincidence, but I just find it funny that something so similar happened so close together to explain why they'd both be able to draw from the same power. It still raises a bunch of other questions. I don't think we'll ever get all those answers, guys. It's a bit of a mess, to be honest. I did a whole video kind of explaining the history of the amount of times the powers have come back. Sometimes explained like Adam and Once a Ranger, sometimes not like Forever Red. But you definitely have a bit of a weird handoff situation when it comes to like Rocky, for example. I mean, you had Jason showing up in Forever Red with the powers out of nowhere. We don't know how he got them back. But then, okay, so we don't know how he got them back, but we know he has them. But then when he comes back again in Beast Morphers, they give him a new coin. And then when we just saw Rocky with the Tyranno coin, I'm going to presume that maybe they just shipped him back and forth. I know that there's a lot of people out there that hold to the belief that the powers were duplicated during the power transfer. I'm just saying, I still do not believe that, because the only reason it was done is because they could not have the actors there. I'm just going to presume the powers dissipated when they were teleported out. Not to mention, in this video, Zach says, I thought it was dangerous to duplicate powers. I feel like that answers it right there. They did not duplicate the powers. And again, it wouldn't make sense. Like in season 3, and when their powers were destroyed at the beginning and when their powers were destroyed at the end before Zeo, I feel like that would have come up. Like, oh man, our powers are destroyed. What about the duplicate power coins? I'm just saying, I don't think they were duplicated. So I think they kind of answer here that the powers were not duplicated back then, and they give the reasoning as to why we're having the dino coins. Which obviously, if we're being honest with ourselves, the meta reason that we have these coins is because they want to do an mmpr team up for the anniversary. They don't want it to be mmpr plus Zeo Ranger 3 and Pink Turbo Ranger. Not to mention they want the symmetry of the dino coins. I think it would be kind of cool to have a team that had a mix of dino and ninja coins just for the sake of history, but I understand why they're going for this, especially since we're going to be using the dino Zords at the end. And it also is kind of neat that Kat will be getting to use the original coin. I think it would be kind of cool if somehow at the beginning of the special she was using the old coin and then got the new one. It would be kind of pointless, but I don't know. That would be pointless ultimately. But I'm talking nonsense. But I'm just saying, I think that would be kind of cool to acknowledge the history. But from this clip, I at least gather that there will probably be a couple other moments where we might address certain lingering questions we have about certain things. I don't expect everything to be answered. I'm sure it will even create a few new questions, maybe just in terms of like not addressing questions we already have or full on creating new questions. But you know, this obviously is addressing a situation, and I think there'll be more things addressed in it. But again, probably not everything. Like, I don't know if they'll address, like, technically speaking, Kat has 2 powers at her disposal. We never got a clear answer on like what happened to the Zeo powers. I mean, obviously they were never destroyed, and we've seen people come back with their mantles multiple times. You know, Tommy came back in Forever Red. All the Zeo Rangers were at Legendary Battle, so we don't know like what the deal with those is. I always headcanoned it when I was younger, that because like the Zeo power was so sought after they defeated the Machine Empire, they kind of kept them in like a break glass in case of emergency situation where like, we don't want these powers out in the open, but if we ever need them, like that's why we're using the turbo power. So I don't know. And then she came back inexplicably with the turbo power. So I mean, this isn't a huge deal. I'm not going to be like, they don't care, blah, 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 if they don't say anything. But I would be curious. I'd love a throwaway line as to why she's not using the other powers. Part of me feels like they could say something like, oh, I left them at home, but then she could just teleport. But still, maybe she doesn't want to teleport. Also, I feel like I never notice things like this, and I feel like I'm doing a breakdown for a soap opera, but if you notice in the clip, Kat is wearing a wedding ring, which I think reconfirms the fact that she's married to Tommy. You know, in the Soul of the Dragon comic, which is supposed to be, supposedly, at least in a version of the main continuity, she's married to Tommy, although the events of that have not happened yet. But I believe it was supposed to be the fact that they were married back in Dimensions in Danger, because they had like the scene of them holding hands at the portal or whatever, and I think there was an interview about that they were supposed to be married, and like there was like cut scenes or something, cut dialogue. I don't know whether it was filmed cut dialogue or scenes or just stuff that never made it in, but they're supposed to be married, so I'm going to assume that's going to stay in it. I can't imagine they're going to include a Power Rangers divorce storyline in there. Also, there's a couple pictures floating around of Mihn with a yellow sweatshirt, like wearing a yellow sweatshirt, and they're like, oh, Yellow Ranger confirmed! It's like, no strap, Sherlock. It's like the worst kept secret of all time. Like, the Mihn character, which was originally Yen, being the Yellow Ranger, was one of the absolute earliest rumors we got about anything in the 30th anniversary. Before we even knew it was a special, like that was one of the earliest rumors floating around back when we were still talking about rumors of them doing Zenkaiger elements and Zyuohger elements and all that stuff. So that was one of the earliest rumors, and it feels pretty obvious. It's kind of actually funny the way the marketing is trying to keep it a secret, like they're not including the Yellow Ranger in stuff. Obviously, I think because they're emphasizing Trini's death in this, but still, it's kind of funny. Like, even if she winds up taking some sort of different mantle, like there was a rumor of an original suit, or if for whatever reason they would make her Red Ranger at the end, which I don't think they're going to do, but I'm just saying, even if she were to take on a different mantle by the end of the special, there's like no way she's not going to transform into the Yellow Ranger at least once in this. And always. Thank you. It seems pretty obvious. And it's also funny how often people correlate like the color like they're wearing. I know that it's like a thing with Power Rangers, but it's just funny how often that's used for evidence. And it makes me always think back to when Tommy became the Black Ranger and he's like, I better go shop for some black clothes. Because I think it was it Fern? Because Fern's going to be Orange Ranger, but I think she was wearing purple a couple times, and they're like, Purple Ranger confirmed! I'm like, you know, like regular civilians can just like choose their own colors. They don't have to be like, well, wish I could wear this purple shirt today, but I'm the Orange Ranger. Damn it! Anyways, guys, that was our first preview clip. You know, I enjoyed the fact that they are explaining a little bit of the logistics. Again, I'm gonna presume that they might have a few more throwaway lines in the special that might explain a couple of the questions we have about certain things. Maybe even why the Zords are there. I know that they were back in Beast Morphers, but, you know, I actually never really thought about that all that much because I thought the only reason they were back is, oh, because we want to use this Sentai footage. So, I don't know. Point is, I think they'll probably answer a couple more questions, but don't expect everything to be answered. But that's about it for this one, guys. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you can get notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.